Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining us for this episode of Threat Talk. I'm your host, Bob Hansmann, and today we're going to talk about patching and vulnerabilities and exploits and all that fun stuff. Now, patching isn't anything new, but because many patches can cause more problems than the problems they're intended to fix, there's been some processes in line for like large enterprises where they'll do rigorous lab testing and they only actually roll out the updates maybe once or twice a year. Now they made exceptions for major security patches, but for the most part, patching was kind of a scheduled thing and pretty rare. But today we live in a world where we have Patch Tuesdays from Microsoft, and it's a daily announcement of something else in your environment that probably needs a patch. So some of this is even products we've never even considered before, all of a sudden needing somebody to take a look at it. So we've invited back the SecOps Manager for Infoblox, Anthony Ciarochi, to talk about how all of this impacts SecOps processes, people, and any plans that they're working on for the future. So thanks for being back on the show, Anthony.
All right, thank you. Thanks for inviting me back.
Well, I want to start by reviewing the problem, like from the 50,000 foot level. So as I mentioned, I recall when everyone was always upset with Microsoft because all the vulnerabilities at that time, they were all about Internet Explorer. But today it can be any product, and it could be not even in a product, but in some library that you're not even sure that maybe your products use. So how did we get from one company of badly built products to now all of a sudden all products are badly built?
Well, yeah, I remember back around the time when Mac systems were first kind of infiltrating the business environments. That year, somebody published that there were like 100,000 unique exploits against Internet Explorer, and the number against Safari were zero. Not that I don't know that it's really that it's more secure, but it's really there's a return on investment. I mean, if you're going to spend, it's just as much work to create an exploit that can target 5 systems as 5 million, or so of course the bad actors are aware of this, and they want to make sure that they have the largest audience for their work. So naturally they're going to go for the biggest population of systems, which at the time was Windows. That's no longer the case now. Macintosh is I don't know if it's actually surpassed the number of Windows systems, but it's pretty much on par. There's also, of course, Linux and other Unix variants still out there that get exposed to the internet and wind up introducing vulnerabilities to the environment, ingress routes, and things like that. So, yeah, it's a different in world that we live in, and I'm sure we can talk a little bit about, also the difference that COVID brought in, where now a lot of these systems are remote. They're no longer inside your firewall. So that's another interesting challenge.
Well, and in the midst of that, you mentioned Linux. Again, that was the other thing. After Internet Explorer, there were vulnerabilities in Microsoft Windows, and then everybody thought Microsoft was the main victim. The bottom line is, I think you hit it right on the nail. The bad guys are going to go after the platforms that allow them to get to the target they want. And at that time, I think, all the bad actors were going, mass mailings. They were going after the consumers. That was the kind of scam. But now they've gotten a lot more targeted to the point that it's not even just those big three, Apple, Microsoft, and Linux. But how long ago was it when we had the Stuxnet virus come out, and it was specifically targeting a very specific kind of centrifuge used by Iranian researchers to refine nuclear material. So they're targeting very specific systems. We see this in oil and gas and other industries. It's just gotten real crazy here. And so the vulnerabilities that they're looking at can be any application. But I also want to talk a little bit about the fact that, again, applications, when you code, you write the code, and then you expect the compiler it's going to add some things. You put in a command that said generate a random number, or open a file, or add a record to a file. You may have those kinds of libraries, but you're not writing the code that actually does that at the lower level.